We are going to win this war because we have the best men. And because they're going to get better. Much better.
Captain America is a movie based on a series of comics by the same name. The comics began in 1941 and were created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. The movie came out in 2011, was directed by Joe Johnston, and was one of a series of introduction movies that would all lead into the Avengers. The story revolves around Steve Rogers, a weak and sickly young man who tries in vain to join the army and help defend his country in World War II. After lying several times on his enlistment forms, he finally catches the eye of Dr. Erskine, a scientist in need of a willing subject who is also a purely good person. Steve is selected and transformed through government experiments into a super soldier. Dr. Erskine is assassinated during the process, and Steve learns that he will be locked away in a lab while scientists try to recreate the serum. Because of this, he doesn't join the army afterwards, instead helping showgirls travel the nation and raise war bonds. He's a celebrity for the American people, representing a beacon of hope for the free world. Eventually, he discovers that his best friend's platoon has been captured, and he joins the war effort to rescue him. After his victorious rescue, he becomes a major part of the Allied army. Before the end of the war, he sacrifices himself by piloting a plane covered with explosives into the ocean. This saves the east coast of the U.S., and he's frozen in the waters and lost until 2011, when he's found by the U.S. government and brought back. Unfortunately for the fans, this movie supports androcentrism. Steve is only important after the serum makes him super strong, and he can physically fight in the war. The serum could have made him super smart instead, which realistically would have been more helpful to a war effort than a single man, no matter how strong he may be. He's also ridiculed for doing a woman's job, where he performs to raise war bonds. Once again, this is probably more helpful to a war effort than a single soldier. His being transformed into a super soldier supports androcentrism, because it revolves entirely around the masculine trait of physical strength. Culturally, being strong is deserving of more value and respect than anything else, and this movie sends a message that you can be a good person, but to be a great person, it's crucial to be big and strong. Steve storms a fortress, disobeys the general, and saves an entire platoon of men. His reward for this is the only female character, Peggy, staring up at him adoringly. This reinforces heterosexuality and dominance, as respect, influence, and most importantly, a female's affection transfers to Steve after his dangerous mission. He proves himself as a man by defying his orders and saving many men without any prior experience or training. This scene fulfills a very narrow definition of masculinity, where independence and bravery are socially rewarded more than dependence or thinking things through. More than that, he's rewarded with Peggy, which conforms to the idea that females are trophies and that men can win them. Peggy at first seemed like she challenged androcentrism because she's a woman in a high and respected role in the military. However, she's always shown with perfect pin-up makeup, even in the middle of a war zone, and is only shown actually fighting the war once, when she fails and Steve has to save her and finish what she failed to do. This conforms to the cultural norm of her worth being determined by her physical attractiveness and the feminine trait of helplessness. Peggy is presented as a beautiful and useless decoration, which dehumanizes her character and takes her out of the plot entirely. When Steve and Peggy first meet, she laments that he has no idea how to talk to a woman, and this is presented, along with his physical weakness, as a great personal failure for him. When Steve is flustered while speaking to her, her response reaffirms the cultural norm of females requiring special treatment. This shows that being female and being courted is the most important part of her character. As a respected soldier, it shouldn't have mattered whether he talked to her like a woman or not. She's a soldier and should be spoken to like a soldier, but she is presented as a woman first and a soldier second, if at all. The movie supports androcentrism by taking what should have been a strong female character and removing all but the most superficial aspects of her strength and power. This redistributes the power structure in the movie so the men remain comfortably in control. There are a few scenes that challenge androcentrism. Steve explains to Peggy that he's never dated a girl because he's too scared and would rather wait for the right partner, which are two firmly feminine traits. This puts Peggy in a position where she's more experienced, but she isn't shamed for it. Additionally, Peggy shows anger and is violent several times, two minor ways she expresses her military background. These situations shift the power to Peggy because she has the masculine traits we associate with power and doesn't conform to gender polarization.